I've identified 5 basic ToK essay question categories that form the basis of all the ToK essay questions in each exam session. I explain how I did this in the video linked above. In short, understanding these 5 basic questions helps us to understand any ToK question that the examiners may ask. Now, in my previous video, I explained question categories 1 to 3. If you missed that video, you can check it out at the link here or in the video description. In this video, I'll explain in more detail the final 2 categories of question. I'll give you some examples of those questions and suggest some possible teaching strategies for ToK teachers to use to help their students with each type of question. Now you can download this graphic and all the other slides that I use in today's video for free from the link in the video description. The first question type that we'll look at today I've called epistemic questions. Now these are ToK questions that explore the classical empiricism versus rationalism debate. However, the IB have never used these words for fear that people might think that ToK is an epistemology course, which it's not, honestly. Anyway, these are questions which ask whether there's a fixed, objective, external reality beyond our minds to be discovered, or whether we have constructed that reality in our minds. Yes, this is blue pill or red pill territory. It's Alice Through the Looking Glass or Wizard of Oz time. More specifically, these questions ask the students to consider the degree to which methodologies might influence the construction of this external reality. Now, these questions always look very enticing, however, some students may find them rather challenging. And here are the questions from the past 7 exam sessions that I've placed into this category. Good examples of questions in this category are question 5, November 24. In the production of knowledge, are we too quick to dismiss anomalies? And students may want to consider whether anomalies are an artifact of the methodology, and if not, then do they have a wider meaning? Another question in this category is question 5 from November 23. Is it always the case that the world isn't just the way it is how we understand it, and understanding something, we bring something to it? And that's a quote from The Life of Pi by Jan Martel, a quote that takes us directly into the heart of the epistemic empiricism versus rationalism debate. Is the world as we find it, or is the world as we have constructed it? Oh yeah. I have a lot of happy memories of unpacking this title with students. But why is there a tiger on the boat? Okay, before we move on to teaching strategies for epistemic questions, please could I ask you to press the like button if you're getting value or just enjoying this video, and consider subscribing to the channel. This would mean a lot to me. Thank you. Okay, teaching strategies for epistemic questions. Well, they're not particularly straightforward because this is a more abstract area of ToK. To make it more concrete, I often start by drawing cross-cultural examples. If meaning or representation changes across cultures, then it's possible to argue that it's more likely to be constructed than externally fixed. If you're teaching in a non-English language culture, you can try to map concepts across the host culture to English and vice versa. So I recently taught in Thailand, so I would ask my students if there were English words for the Thai concept of sanook or sabai. Now, in English language cultures, you could ask the students what the English equivalent of well-known French terms are, such as the word chic. Is there an English equivalent? And it's a way into distinguishing between the constructed world and fixed knowledge. This can all be linked to the role of the knowledge framework, that's the scope, perspectives and methods in particular, and linked to constructing meaning. So let's move on to our final category of ToK essay questions, and that's the questions which are asked about ethical issues. In ToK, questions about ethics ask students to explore how knowledge production or acquisition can give rise to ethical issues. The students are not asked to solve the ethical issues per se, but rather to focus on the knowledge issues linked to the ethical issues. So, for example, Essay 1 from November 24 asks, does our responsibility to acquire knowledge vary according to the AOK? The question is asking whether there's a link between the responsibility to acquire knowledge and the type of knowledge acquired. Therefore, students need to consider different ways that responsibility could be defined, and this will probably include the ethical and possibly moral aspects of responsibility. A second example of a question in this category is question number 3 from May 2023. Does it matter if our acquisition of knowledge happens in bubbles where some information and voices are excluded? Now, this is asking whether the exclusion of knowledge and people matters, and that's most likely to lead some students to consider some of the ethical issues arising from the question. However, the examiner notes from this question focus centrally on the knowledge issues arising from exclusion rather than the ethical issue of exclusion itself. It's a little bit tricky. You sort of have to acknowledge that there are ethical issues and these impact on the production or acquisition of knowledge, and then focus on that impact in the production and acquisition of knowledge rather than the ethical issue itself. And here you can see the other questions that I've placed in this ethical issues category from the past 7 exam sessions. Moving to the teaching strategies for questions that are dealing with ethical issues. Obviously, ethical issues are part of the knowledge framework for each AOK, and therefore they should be considered when teaching each AOK. However, there are common ToK concepts linked to the ethical issues in each AOK, and these concepts include power, values, truth, justification, culture. And I find that the concept of truth is commonly misunderstood and misused in ToK. Most students use it to mean an external axiomatic certainty. Now, when you're teaching ethics, you have a really good opportunity to help the students to understand more relativist and individualized definitions of truth. This could be done by contrasting ethical or moral values that differ across cultures or groups or even within a culture. And there we have it, 5 basic ToK essay question categories that underpin all other ToK essay questions. Of course, I'm very aware that my identification of these 5 categories is subjective, and my sorting of questions into these categories is also subjective. Someone else may sort the questions differently or even come up with different categories. But it's the very process itself which is a really useful way of understanding the construction of the essay questions and the range of possible responses to those questions. Now, if you're preparing students to write their ToK essay in the current exam session, you may want to pick up the ToK Today essay support notes for teachers from the ToK Today website, link in the video description. And if you're looking for teaching strategies and materials for the ToK essay, then be sure to pick up Teach the ToK Essay in 12 Lessons from the ToK Today website. Link also in the video description or on this QR code on the screen. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. Many thanks for watching today, and you've made it all the way to the end, which is very impressive. I hope to see you on the next video. Stay ToKtastic, my friend.